Hello beautiful people and welcome back to my channel. My name is Boston and I'm a music photographer based in Los Angeles, and I do videos on music photography and general photography stuff. I'm so happy to be back. I know I haven't done a video for a while, but things are starting to get back to normal. I'm starting to do more shows. I'm so excited about it. But I did this one show where I posted a before and after, and so many people commented on it because it's a pretty striking difference. So I wanted to show you guys very quick edit, very basic edit. We're gonna jump right into it. Super simple. Anyone can do this, and I believe in you. It's really fun, it's really easy, and just basic Lightroom skills. So that all being said, let's jump right into this because this is a fun one. So this is the picture, this is the before. So this was this hazy, just gross, all one color. If you shoot with a lot of fog, it tends to be saturated in one color. And this is what I recovered it to afterwards. This vibrant, very colorful. I had a lot of fun with this shoot. It was very difficult because it was hazy, but this one I could tell from the original that it was fairly sharp, like sharp enough that I could use this in the future. And I know that it doesn't look that great, but for my uses, this is good enough for me and for what I was sharing it on social media. I do want to say that I used a filter when photographing this, and that's actually why it's a little blurry. I was using a lens star filter, so that's why I have these big long star like light trails in the photo. Love that filter. I'll link it below, but it does make your images a little bit less sharp because it's trying to focus through something. I noticed that a lot of my images were less sharp than usual just because of that filter. That all being said, let's get into this edit. So what I'm gonna do first is come over here and reset it back to that gross look, but don't worry, we have to start from somewhere. So normally I go in and start with exposure, contrast, and clarity. In this case, I'm not going to change the exposure because it is so bright already that there's a lot going on, so I need to adjust something else. So I'm going to come in and see if I can already correct the white balance. You can see in the upper left-hand corner that as soon as I hover over a skin tone, this is giving me a much better color palette to work with. So I'm going to start with that. Still really bright, so we're going to kick up the contrast, maybe like 15. Wow, that did nothing. So let's jump up to 30. Let's bring down some of the highlights. I like rounded numbers, so you'll always see me hop around from like 15 or whatever. And darken it a little bit, so I'm gonna change the blacks to like -10. And then this is the fun part. So clarity and dehaze are gonna be your saving grace for a quick, easy edit when you are using Lightroom with something that's really hazy. So I know that I'm already gonna push these a lot, so I'm gonna kick clarity up to 50. I'm gonna kick dehaze up to 50 as well. Now, that dehaze did so much, and you can see if I just move the slider back and forth how much it's doing. Like if I bring it all the way over to 100, wow, that got rid of so much of the fog. We're not going to do that yet, so I'm going to leave it at 50. I'm going to bring up my vibrance, probably bring up my saturation too, just because I want that pop of color still. I'm gonna bring down the texture. That'll just help get a little bit of grain out of here. You'll see if I move this all the way down, it blurs it quite a bit. So I'm just gonna take that down up a little bit, maybe 20. Okay, so that is the first initial walkthrough of what I do for the edits for this. Now, moving on to a few other smaller bits, we're going to go into lens corrections right away. I always remove the chromatic aberration. Yeah, that's how you say that. I feel like I always struggle with that. That'll just help the edges. I don't think that there's a lot in this photo, but I want to enable that anyway. I normally don't enable the profile corrections for the lenses. I feel like it's a little too dramatic, and I do like the dark edges that some of my lenses give me. So If it's your style and you want to add that, go ahead, but I am not in this case. Then I hop over to detail, and I always kind of kick up my sharpening and add the masking. So a little trick here is if you want to only add your sharpening on the edges, so say like the features of the face and whatnot, which is normally where you like the sharpening, you want those features to really pop, hit Alt, and then drag the masking side. So you can see that it's like trying to sharpen everything at this point. You can say, hey, I only want these edges. So I'm gonna drag that around 80. That seems good. This only makes slight changes. So like nothing that we're doing here is super dramatic. It's just kind of like final touches for me. It just like helps my image kind of pop a little bit more. And then we go into noise reduction. I just add a little bit on here, and I normally don't touch any of the other settings. So I'm gonna close out of that. Now, a lot of people use the tone curve. I'm kind of a fan of the tone curve. I don't use it all that often, but I do like it. I do think that it's a great tool to use. There's so many videos out there about learning how to use the tone curve. I think that it can be very complicated, so I don't really want to go into it for the sake of this video. Normally I just kind of like add a little S into it, where it's just like, you know, this middle section goes down and then the like highlights go up, just to make it pop a little bit more. And if you look at the before and after of just that, those were like the slightest little movements. You can see that it really pops. So if you don't want to learn all about the tone curve and how to use it, or you think that it's really overwhelming for you in your edits, I would say just try it out. Come in here, bring down the darks just slightly, and then up the highlights just a little bit too. So your curve is going to look almost like that straight line still, but just with a slight little curve to it. So already doing great. This is slightly different, I think, than my original edit, but I love it. I think that this one's actually a little bit more colorful. So now we're going to come back in here and I'm going to make some final tweaks. So the image itself is a little off angle, I guess. So I'm going to come in here and drag. So I am using this mic stand for reference, saying like that is my straight line. I normally like to keep the eyes at this upper third, and then like right in the middle of the picture. So I'm gonna hit done and see if I like that framing. Okay, now I want to come in and make this image really pop. So I'm going to come back to the clarity and the dehaze. And again, like I said, when you're working with a really hazy photo like it was at the beginning, and let's just bring this up for reference, that took very few minutes and we're already so much better. This is such a beautiful image. I would still like post this. I think that this is fine as is if you wanted to leave it like that. But I really want it to pop. I want the face to pop. I want like him to stand out. So I'm gonna come back into the clarity and dehaze. Best friends when your image is hazy. So let's go back in. Gonna bring up the clarity just a little bit, probably just 75 sounds good. And then, ooh, okay, like, that looks pretty good. Now, the problem is I don't like green. It's personal preference, I just don't think it's a pretty color. So I'm gonna come back in here and start changing my tint, and you can see that that already made such a huge difference. So, maybe negative 14? Ooh, okay. I'm liking that a lot because you get all of these different colors. You do still get the green in here, you get the oranges and the blues. Thinking I'm liking that one. So come back up here, probably add more contrast. That looks pretty good. I'm gonna bring down my highlights just a little bit more because you can see in his face there's a lot of features that are just like really white. So let's just bring them out to darken it just a little bit, like 35, okay, fine, whatever. And then I'm just rounding out my numbers because it bothers me. And then I think that looks pretty good. Okay, so like I said, just rounding out those numbers, bringing this to kind of a final step. I didn't even touch my exposure. I really liked it how it was shot. Just bringing those colors back into the image instead of that haziness. Now, here's another example. This was a similar shot done like probably 2 seconds later, and this is how I edited that one. A little bit more pink. I'm actually really liking this so far. I might add a little bit more. Oh, I really like that blue. Maybe right there. -13, maybe -12. -12. I like that a lot. Maybe add a little bit more. Ooh, oops, way too much. I think that looks pretty good. Like I said, I'm just making minor things now at this point. It's really heavy on that clarity and that dehaze. And honestly, if you wanted to take this image and just only do clarity and dehaze, it's probably going to give you a similar effect. So let's try that right now, just so I can show you how powerful those two things are. So I'm going to create a virtual copy, and I'm going to reset this. So this is the original photo again. Let's just jump over to 80 on both. Okay, so really orange, because that was the color again, but if you just pop in your little dropper of the white balance, like you can see how similar that is. I think that the one that we took a little bit more time on for those final tweaks obviously pops a little bit more. This one's just kind of a little hazy, a little muted, I would say still, but side by side, very similar. So I just want you guys to know, like, if you get a really hazy shot like that and you're like, oh my god, I can never recover this, you can absolutely recover it. Go in, clarity dehaze is your friend. Like, go just slide those sliders around and really play with it, and you're gonna get such a great shot out of it and really save it at the end of the day. So that is it. That is the edit that I wanted to walk you guys through. It's super simple. I promise you, Lightroom is not scary. If you are a big Lightroom fan, I'm with you right there. If you're a beginner or new to Lightroom, Lightroom can be really scary, and I think that things like this just make it really simple. There's some great tools out there in Lightroom that you can just make such a beautiful image off of, and really just like save your ass when it's hazy and gross like that. So anyway, that is my quick edit. I hope that that was helpful for you guys. I hope that you save a ton of photos that you would have otherwise thrown away. If you have hazy photos and you want to see how I would edit them, please reach out to me and I will edit them on screen, because I find editing really fun, and I always like to share my edits because I feel like editing is kind of personal and can really change the image. So anyway, I'm rambling, but that was the quick edit for you. Hopefully that helped. Hopefully you can go save some of your photos. And thank you so much for watching. I do put out new videos kind of every week. We'll get back to it eventually, but I will see you guys in the next one. Thanks so much. Bye!